It's nice to see a lot of people here today, especially on this celebration of life and also a somber occasion, as it is for many. So friends, family, we gather here today to celebrate the life of Peter Kitto. He was a remarkable individual who touched the lives of so many. My name is Charles Holt. I'll be the MC. Very interesting notice on that, but that's life. That's how life happens, right? I met Peter through Veterans for Freedom, and he became a pretty integral member to our team. Very deeply rooted in his philosophies, helped a lot of our teams. So that's how I came to know him. And so it's an honor for me to be up here as the MC for today for you all, as well as those online that are watching. Peter, born on 22nd of November 1959. He left this world last year on the 28th of November, at the age of 63. But he had a full life, from what I can tell, and especially how much, even in his later years, he invested into us, which was kind of amazing. So throughout his life, he was a shining example of what it means to be a humanitarian. There's no doubt about that. His unwavering commitment to helping others make a positive impact on the world around him was very inspiring, no doubt. Peter is survived by his loving wife, Anne, whom she came down to meet us. That was awesome. And we got a chance to have a good time with her at a potluck. And and his family as well, they're here. I've met a few of them already. I haven't had the opportunity to meet everybody. Some of whom, may or may not be with us as well. Although I know the love and support that you provided Peter throughout his life meant the world to him. As it did, as he supported us as well. It was kind of like a back and forth, especially when we knew him. So as we gather today to celebrate Peter's life, let's take a moment to reflect on the many ways in which he touched our lives and made the world a better place. His legacy will live on in our hearts and memories and will continue to inspire us all. Please bow your heads if you like. Heavenly Father, we come before you today to celebrate the life of our dear friend, Peter Kitto. We thank you for the blessings of knowing him, for the positive impact he had on our lives and the lives of those he touched. We remember Peter as a man who dedicated his life to helping others, particularly as a trauma therapist, and as a friend to members of Veterans for Freedom. Even in the face of his own challenges, he was a shining example of strength, courage, and resilience. We ask you to grant us the grace to honor his memory by continuing his legacy of kindness, compassion, and selflessness. May we always remember his unwavering spirit and the lessons he taught us throughout his life. In Jesus' name, amen. There's some scripture here that I'm going to read, and it relates to him. By this we know love. He laid down his life for us, and we ought to lay down our lives for our brothers. 1 John 3:16. This verse reminds us of the selflessness that Peter sowed in his work and his life. May the God of hope fill you with all the joy and peace in believing, so that by the power of the Holy Spirit you may be around hope. Romans 15:13. This verse speaks of the hope we have in the resurrection and the comfort we can find in our faith. Blessed are those who mourn, for they shall be comforted. Matthew 5:4. This verse reminds us that God is with us in our grief and others to comfort us in the time of our sorrow. So we may not lose heart, for our outer self is wasting away, our inner self is being renewed day by day. 2 Corinthians 4:16. This verse speaks to the strength and inner resilience of Peter. He embodied in his life and encouraged us to find the same strength in our own lives. As we know that for those who love God, all things work together for good. Those who are called according to his purpose. Romans 8:28. This verse reminds us that even in times of great grief, God is at work, bringing good out of even the most difficult circumstances. Thank you. If I could call Ann up to light the candle. Peter. That was Peter. You know, it's so if Rob could come up and speak, he's a longtime friend of Peter's. Definitely gonna give some words. Good history there. That's better.
I've done this before. Somehow this one's turning out to be a little more difficult for me than past ones. I'm not Saturday, but I'm expecting to be. Yeah, I'm back a long, long way. I think we met each other in the late 70s. We were both making corrections at the time. I have some years in. He was the FNG, for those of you who know. But it didn't take him long to get my attention. It's like a solid guy. And I got to know him. And, that time Pete was young. He was a young fellow, right? He had just finished a significant custody battle with the Ministry of Children and Families. He had custody of his young son. He was only about 5 or 6 years old at the time. That got my attention. A young man who's running towards responsibility and accountability rather than running away from it. And we worked together, and Pete was having some financial troubles at the time, going through the business bankruptcy. He had to be very careful about monetary things because he monitored. He had a skill set. He was a carpenter, and he had the potential to do some work. He had lots of time off at the time. And he asked me, he said, you know, will you help me with this? Because he needed he needed a helper, and B, he needed somebody to sort of do the money stuff so that he didn't draw the attention of people. So I said, yeah, I had no skill set, right? I mean, I was not a handyman myself. You know, I knew which one of the end of the hammer was a hammer to be hit with, but that was about it. But we worked together for some years doing all kinds of stuff, roofing, siding, renos, building decks, and you know, he knew what he was doing, and he was a patient teacher too. And I learned a bunch of stuff from him. Everything I now today know about handyman, do-it-yourself stuff started with what I learned from Peter. The big moment in our relationship, though. The big moment of difference both in and to maybe in different ways was corrections related. It had to do with a very violent incident that he and I were involved in. It was life-changing for both of us in different ways. I think much of what the gentleman spoke about what Peter's accomplishments like come from that very moment. Because that was a moment that for Peter, it led to the injury, which eventually put him in that mobility chair. But it also motivated him to do his work and in terms of the critical injury incident response team and trauma and post-trauma work. And he developed that over the years. In our day, there was no such thing as critical incident response or any recognition of trauma or anything like that at all. It was like, suck it up, let it go, right? You don't need another one. You don't go on, you got on the other side. What are you crying about? People just left to it. I think, let's do it, but you know what? The alcoholism was real high, the divorce rate was real high, the suicide rate was real high. And I think Pete saw that, and I think his own personal experience, the experience he and I had after that incident that he and I experienced together, motivated him towards working against a critical incidents response and getting that program functional within the corrections branch where they have existed before. How was it life-changing for me? Well, it was life-changing for me because a whole series of events unfolded from it, including giant riot, an escape, and the death list. Remember that, and that whole business, right? Those of you who want to know, I'll talk to you about all that later if you want to know. But it motivated me to leave corrections altogether, go back to university and become a teacher. Where I had a 25-year career in teaching high-risk high school students, ones that wouldn't have graduated, couldn't have graduated, or were struggling to graduate because of situations and circumstances they find themselves in. When I heard the news, which was so unexpected, I reflected and started to reflect on a poem that I've been teaching in high school for like decades, right? And I thought I understood it because I still understood it because I was teaching it, right? But John Donne, it's called No Man is an Island. Not gonna read the whole thing, even though it's not very long. Starts off by saying that no man is an island until entire of itself. Connection between all of us. So what was the connection between Peter and me? Well, the connection was that we experienced stuff together. We have memories, right? I'm in his memories, he's in my memories. Part of who I am today. Part of how I spent the last 30 years as a teacher is because of that one single incident with my friend Peter. And I would guess that a lot of who he became was because of that single incident too. Because if I remember, he had never talked about critical incidents, post-trauma, traumas, or anything like that before this. He never used to think close. It was on his mind. He was worried about it. He didn't. And then Peter went. Any man's death diminishes me because I am involved with him. Who are we really? We are our experiences and our memories, aren't we? Who we are today is because we were yesterday, what we did yesterday, last month and last week and last year, and 10 years ago, when we were children, right? Before that year ago. Any man, death diminishes. Peter's death diminishes me. When he went, part of me went with him. Now, well, no, I'm okay with it, because whatever, it could be there a few years ahead of me, but I will catch him at the end. Maybe not so long from now. Poem finishes. Therefore, never send to know for whom the bell tolls for thee. What do I take from all of this? Peter was a good friend. I don't know if I was a good friend. Maybe I could be a bad friend. Yeah, tell me how you feel about that. I'm gonna catch up with you. I got nothing else. Except for this, see you on the other side.
It was wonderful. Thanks for that. If there's anyone else that'd like to come up and say a few words before we open up the Zoom, just come on up. All right. What's your name, sir?
Ed.
Ed. Ed Fryer. Nice to meet you.
Can you do something for me? There's a picture that was flashing on the screen there. So some wagons in the background and it's tables and we're like tablecloth. Can you go back to that? We were doing a wagon ride out west. There's some beautiful country out there with lots of grasslands and lakes and trees. And a bunch of us got together and went up there. Anyway, Pete said, I don't cook. You're gonna have to do the cooking. Okay. But he said, I'll do the first meal. So there we are out in the middle of nowhere. I'm looking after the horses. He's getting supper. Out comes a tablecloth, wine glasses, fancy steaks. The whole 9 yards out in the middle of nowhere. How the hell am I gonna compete with that? I don't cook it a damn. And then the rest of the week, he spent complaining about my food. Difficult Pete. I had to show off right off the bat and probably prepared everything so that he could just lay it out there. Anyway, Pete come up here from the coast, joined up with the Outdoors Club, and that's where we started off. I see pictures of sleigh and a wagon out there with the feet, and we did a lot of things together. I went hunting once with him, but I'm not a hunter. I never did go fishing with him because I hate fishing. You'll never see the excitement in sitting in a boat going around in circles and not catching anything, which is my luck. I went hunting once. Is Maggie here somewhere?
No,
No. Anyway, he kind of remembers that trip. As we were out riding on the horses and we stopped somewhere and I don't know whether it was Madge or Pete, so how come you're wearing two different boots? And one brown cowboy boot and one black one. And I guess it was a little dark, but I grabbed my boots out of the closet and I got one of each. There we went. We built a lot of things. I moved down the Mission Valley. Pete was there to help me, whatever, brought his tractor down. Helped build the barn. With that?
You help with ours.
Well, I tried to help out too, back and forth. Yeah, I'm trying to think of something else funny that happened. Oh, yeah, that same trip, actually. We all go down out to Fish Lake, it's Finn's pasture belongs to the Gary McDonald and the ranch there. And we're getting ready to leave, everybody's packing up, heading out the gate, and I stop. Put the gates up probably, I hate leaving the wire gates laying on that. Oh, where's everybody else? Over the hill and out of sight. So my horses decided they were gonna join him, and I wasn't even on the reins or on the wagon. My saddle horse was tied behind the wagon. My little dachshund dog was sitting on the seat. I see them going over the hill, and my saddle horse is dragging her all 4 feet, trying to hold them back, but they're going. They made it over the hill and around the first corner, and they crashed through took a shortcut and hit a snag and crashed off a bank, and they were all tangled up there. I'm trying to get that all straightened out, and everybody else is merrily going down the trail. I guess eventually they figured, hey, where's Ed? Better send somebody back to find out. Well, they found out. By then I had kind of untangled everything, and Pete had to tow my wagon. And we did a little damage. And I rode my saddle horse and took my food. My dog rode with Pete. Pete says, you know, that dog, his eyes are bigger than a plate and his ears are standing straight up, and he doesn't want to be anywhere with you. Anyway, that was one of the good times. Oh, I don't know. What else do you say? Goodbye, Pete. See you sometime. All the best, Dan.
Want to come up and speak?
It out loud, but you were talking about Pete being a carpenter. He's building an awesome walking closet.
Built you a walk-in closet.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. Yeah, actually, that's kind of fascinating. I didn't even know he was a carpenter until I saw the sign at the front desk. I was like, okay, multi-talented man here. There's a phrase, it's called autodidact, and I think he was one of those. It's basically self-learning. I think, yeah, he definitely an individual when it came to that. And his brother said he was his own. What do you call it? It was his own kind of band, I guess it was. I can't remember the exact phrase he said. But yeah, he was very particular. Okay, his brother will come up. Right on.
Hi, everybody, I'm Dan. I'm Pete's younger brother. Thanks for all coming. It's great to see such a great turnout. You know, I wish I could say a lot about Pete, but we all lived our own lives, and he went his way, I went my way. But one thing I know about Pete is any cause that he had or anybody that he felt passionate about, he really showed his passion. If he was behind the cause, it was 100%, and there was no swaying him from it. There was no talking him out of it. If that's something he believed in, that's where he was going. And you know, it's one of those things, you know, I kind of regret the fact that we never really got to hang out that much. I was always traveling when I was younger, you know, moving with work. I was in construction. moving with work and getting into my own little jams and my own little problems and. But I was having a hell of a good time. It was one of those things, right? I always said, you know, I want to do everything now, so I'm not going to regret not doing it when I get older. But, you know, being a kiddo, I overdid it. In a lot of those cases, but Pete was one of those guys that just, he had a path and that's what he was going on. And if he felt passionate about a cause and he was, had anything to do with it, that's where he was going. And I could see by the people that have showing up and the causes that he was helping out and, everything else. Like I had the opportunity to sit in with him in one of his PTSD meetings that he put on down at the Legion, down at the coast, and I was blown away. It was like, wow. I had no idea that he had this in him to like the compassion that he showed and everything towards the other people and just the remarks, just walking around and talking to everybody else that was there at this little seminar that he was putting on. It really gave me a new appreciation for his passion for what he did and his passion for what he loved. And I know he loved that woman right there. And that was his world, right? That was his world. So, and you know, we're all with you. So, other than that, I was his birthday present when he was 1 year old. He was born December 22nd, 59, and I was born December 22nd, 1960. And you know, when we're kids, we're always trying to break our toys. Well, he thought I was his toy. And we tried hard for many, many years, but damn it, bro, it didn't work. So there we go. I'm a very lucky guy to have him as a brother. So thank you all again for coming, and I love you, bro.
Yeah, big man, touched everybody. I mean, I can relate to that experience with family, for sure.
Okay. I'm not very good at this stuff. I get emotional pretty easy, but I didn't really know Peter other than through the V4F Zoom calls. We talked a few times, but he sure struck me as a pretty level-headed, knowledgeable guy. Very interesting to listen to. I listened to quite a few of his talks when we had him on. And yeah, he's going to be missed, that's for sure. One thing I really liked about him is that he held veterans in very high regard, and that means a lot to me. I promised myself I wasn't going to get teary-eyed, but here it is. Anyway, I just want all his family to know that he will be missed. He was a book of knowledge, and was very kind and understanding guy. And one interaction that him and I had was one night I was laying in bed a little bit stoned up on weed, and I had my baby goose with me. I found a baby Canada goose in the spring last year, and I had him with me on the bed. And Peter kind of gave me a little bit of advice and a warning that I shouldn't really have that goose. And I told him they'd have to send some pretty big guys to yank him out of my possession. And I just want everyone in the room to know I still got baby Ryan. He's out in the barn and he's happy. But yeah, I hope everyone there has a great day. And I wish Peter well in his journey. And it's nice to see all you guys again. Rest in peace, Pete. Your watch is over. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Daryl.
You're welcome.
So we have anyone else or, yeah, okay, there we go. All righty, Jeremy. Gotcha. Just getting himself ready.
Sort that. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Sound check. Okay. Hi, everybody. Sorry, I had a little issue here. The chat box is disabled, so I couldn't get a message to anybody, and I'm just kind of floating along here. Yeah, I just kind of at the last second here popped in, but I haven't had a lot of time to think about this, but I suppose I don't need to. I didn't know Peter for a long time, maybe a year or so, and he, however, did have a profound effect on not just my life but my partner Morgan as well. He has some of you may know who I am or not. It's not important, but I was in the military for a long time, almost 15 years, and that comes with its own set of unique challenges and issues. I have some of them on display behind me that comes with its own unique baggage that is difficult to carry. And one of the worst parts of that is that it's very difficult to untangle that and process that and deal with that with just anybody or anyone in that for that matter, your own family, your friends. It's really hard to relate and impart these kinds of things that happen and how we deal with them as people. But Peter was a unique person in that way that you could tell, he was a very loving and compassionate guy with a really deep understanding of some really dark aspects of human nature and things that can happen and things that you can be taken to mentally and spiritually. And I think I connected with him. Again, my personal problems and struggles are not totally relevant, but I was incarcerated actually in Saskatchewan, long story, but he was an invaluable resource to me and Morgan. And just from the moment I met him and spoke to him, he had been, a supporter of mine over the internet, but it was clear that he was a very genuine person. And for whatever reason, he was an easy guy to talk to. And for my own benefit, and I'm sure he's had the same, I know he has had the same similar effect on dozens or more of other veterans in the V4F community and around that. Just it was that kind of sensation, feeling that finally, like somebody, this guy he understands, and he's able to this calming kind of fatherly presence that he had, even despite all of the rough experiences that he had himself and everything that he's had to live with and overcome and battle. And even to the very end, he never complained. He always had a bright attitude and a kind of a gentle, focused determination about him that I really respected and admired. I really looked up to him, and it's rare that I find another man that I can connect with and talk to and share personal things like that with. And Peter did that for me, and I'll forever be grateful to him for that and for the support that he gave to Morgan and by extension my friends and family and the rest of us with his strength and just his presence. More to that is the things that I've learned from him and took away from him. The best parts of that, he was a really good natured, good hearted guy. And again, he had every reason to be. He could have been bitter. He could have been angry. He could have been all kinds of spiteful, negative things, but he wasn't. He used all these things as a source of strength, as a way to, push past obstacles and become a stronger version of himself, even despite the things that he had to deal with. And I was in awe of that. And he really reminded me of some other people, like my own grandfather who passed away years ago, was a similar kind of kind of guy. And if we had more people around like him, like them, we would all be doing a lot better. I know that for sure. And I'm gonna, I'm never gonna forget him, and I know Morgan won't either. And I'm gonna actually, where is this? He gave me this shortly before he passed away. This is this the white one? Yeah, so from the British Columbia Correctional Center where he worked. And the things that he taught me, not even all of it verbally, just kind of the exchange of energies and attitudes, vibes, if you will. I'm going to carry that as an example for the rest of my life, because he was a guy to look up to, and the things that he taught me and passed on through me, I'm going to use and keep close to my heart to pass on to my children, my friends and family. And I'll use his example for as long as I'm still around, to try to carry on the message and the intent that he had, which was to help the people that need help. So again, thank you for the opportunity to share my experience with him and say a couple of words. It means a lot to me, and I miss him, and Morgan misses him, and we were fortunate to have a short call with him towards the end, and I wish I'd been able to see him in person beforehand, but I'm sure I'll see him again. So thank you very much, everybody, for this. And if I have any last passing thing to say, in being in the company of death so often through my life and the military and so on, is that it's unavoidable and it happens to us all, but not everybody lives the kind of inspiring and bright light of a life that like Peter did. And if we can take that kind of wonderfulness that they left behind and left as an example and make it a part of ourselves, and then spread it around and try to keep it alive, that's then they stay alive. Their energy and their life stays with us. Yeah. Thank you, guys. I appreciate it.
Essentially, it's a connection with us at B4F, and what he meant to our team, especially us in the West. Well, more others, but I'm a bit partial to the West. Yeah, us West today, we don't seem to have healthy parlance, at least for the members. Yeah, for sure. We have a deep connection with everybody across Canada. There's always that rivalry, kind of like the Oilers and the Flames sort of thing. It's not really crazy, but it's still fun games. But so essentially he was found by one of our compatriots, Daniel Crossland. And so a little bit of background, I guess, on Veterans for Freedom as a whole. It was initiated out of I'm not sure if all of you are familiar with the trucker protest in Ottawa. But the first line that was attacked post emergency measures invocation, which was illegal, the first line that was attacked were all veterans. And I happen to be on that front line with a lot of our other members. I didn't really connect there through the Veterans for Freedom group, but the guys that were attacked, they formed the group Veterans for Freedom among the many veterans that were there, because they realized, well, we needed to do something, or they needed to do something out of this giant mess to try to solve this problem that we were having in Canada. And there's plenty of videos talking about what happened to us on the line, and how everybody got attacked and stuff, but that galvanized us and it created Veterans for Freedom. And then a lot of other ideas started to flow from that. Okay, so how do we get the word out? How do we connect with people? How do we help people heal? And like I said, through the Freedom community, Daniel Crossland had connected with Peter. And then he came on board voluntarily with us, and he started to give us some of his wisdom to help walk through some of these challenges, which is, you know, I'm not sure if I can speak to the challenge of betrayal to everyone, but you know, when in our particular case, you know, for the military, we are one of the services that are essentially told that part of your job is to die for the country. And you know, when your country betrays you, it's pretty significant. You know, especially when you've already decided that, hey, I'm going to put my life on the line for these individuals in this place. And so he helped people, help us and many others kind of walk through that process to, I would say, even to some degree, he's prevented a lot of guys from killing themselves. And that's significant, you know. He made our ability to work as a team a little bit of a lighter load. You know, he added so much value to us with his skill, and his tact, and his ability to communicate what it meant to go through that kind of challenge. And he was, you know, it was it was awesome too, because he was able to connect with us in a really interesting way, probably because of his background in corrections, because a lot of the veterans were pretty dark humored folk. You know, we solve a lot of our issues through humor, because sometimes, you know, you're just in the you know what, and you can't really do much about it other than laugh about it, right? And so that was one of the ways that he was able to connect with us, as well as he understood how we work through those challenges. Because most people in the civilian world, they would get completely freaked out about our dark humor. But you know, and the way it works is it's almost the deflation of the trauma, and it allows people to solve it in their minds, believe it or not. It's really bizarre, but it's something that's experienced across many militaries. And so he was on the vast majority of our Zoom calls, which were pretty much every week, at least for a year. And I think it was 4 occasions he came on as a primary speaker to go through the different steps of working through trauma and his different experiences and stuff like that. And he actually apologized. We had Pastor Arthur Pulowski, one of our calls, and he apologized on behalf of correction services, because the way they treated him, for example, was he said in his own words, it was worse than a lot of serial killers. You know, and the guy's a pastor, and a good one. You know, he knew what he was doing, standing up against all this stuff. And the government arrested him, put him in jail, and like I said, they treated him worse than a lot of serial killers. It's pretty significant. And Pete, you know, he understood that. So it was he had the ability to connect in a really interesting way. One of the other big moments, I guess the smoke was in our favor. So they were on their way back on their big long trip across Canada. And we happened to have we were doing a potluck for Veterans for Freedom at the drop zone in Innisfail, so it's for skydiving. And he came out and just brought his joy as well. He paid for my jump, one of them, of the many, and Jill's first time. Unfortunately, because of the timeline and the sunset and a lot of other technical details, we weren't able to jump that day. I did early on in the day, but I wasn't able to use what he had paid for until I think it was October. It was like 2 months later, 6 weeks, yeah. So and then we were able to go, and that was Jill's first jump. So that's pretty awesome. And it happened to be, like I said, one of our Veterans for Freedom events, and one of that was to get the team together, raise camaraderie a bit more, and get the spirits up and have a little bit of fun. Who doesn't like jumping in planes, right? Okay. But you like watching, right? Yeah, okay. Yeah, so that was, meeting Peter. And as bizarre as it might sound, I don't know if everybody else experienced this, but up until the first time that I met him, I didn't even know he was in a wheelchair. And I think that also adds on to the endless, capacity that at least we've seen of him being able to not complain. And he was in the wheelchair for, was it not 6 years? 7 years? And yeah, I didn't even know. He came on the Zoom calls, no complaints, always adding value, and that's pretty amazing, I'm not sure. I think it's something we all need to espouse to do, in my opinion. So he definitely made an impact on us, Veterans for Freedom across Canada, and then the other veterans, civilians, just you can name it, but that's kind of where he connected with us. And I'm reminded of, I don't know if you guys seen the book Tuesdays with Maury, or read the book. It's about another gentleman who is going through his time of passing on. But he did it with such grace and elegance. It just, it was weird that I had read that book a number of years before, and it was like, man, this is Peter right here. So those situations, I think we all should be able to espouse to do, or at least try. As an example in real life, that's just, for me, that was awesome. And I think it's hopeful, and we should all kind of promote his legacy of importance and the importance of self-care. That's something he also very much promoted, because there's, we help each other out, but a lot of times we have to enjoy our breakfast, as it says on his mug. A little bit of time to ourselves as well. So yeah, that's kind of the connection, and I'm sure I missed a lot of things, especially in the time that we've known him and you've known him. If Jill can come up and she can communicate as to what she's written about him and wants to pass on a message to you all as well. Thank you very much, Jill. What was that with that? Shake or a hug?
Oh my. Just in case. Trying to keep it together. I've been thinking about this moment for weeks. My name is Jill Younghusband, and I'm a veteran, and I'm the daughter of a veteran. And my family has been involved with the military for many generations. And the last 4 years have been really rough for my family and for myself. And finding V4F was one blessing out of this 4-year nightmare. And then within V4F, connecting with Peter Kitto is another blessing for me. And so we met in the fall of 2022 in a screening call on Zoom with the command team with Veterans for Freedom West, with Charles and Dan and Anthony, and I'm not sure if Jackie was on that call, but he came on the call and he introduced himself and we had a lovely conversation. And the first thing I thought was, oh my goodness, he looks like my father. And my dad passed away suddenly in February of 21. And I thought, isn't that interesting how he looks so much like my dad? And so he accepted our invitation to be an associate. And he started joining our weekly calls, and we all started looking forward to, oh, Peter's in the waiting room. Oh, good, Peter's joining the call this week. And whoever was hosting the call, you could hear them say, Pete, you have a question? And everybody would pay attention. Oh, Pete's going to speak. And so he had a grounding energy to the group. And he always had such wonderful feedback and the odd joke. And so in December of 2022, he offered to present it on a Zoom call because Christmas is difficult for veterans. And he said, well, I would love to present before Christmas just to give you guys some tips and some guidance to get through the holidays in case you get a call from from a friend in crisis. And sure enough, we opened it up to the veterans across the country. And so, and that talk was 2 hours and 20 minutes. And the wisdom that he shared with us throughout that entire presentation, it was profound. In the last 2 weeks, I've gone through 12 hours of footage of Peter presenting to Veterans for Freedom, because he presented a total of 4 times. And during that process, I had to get up and leave my computer a number of times because of the gravity of the loss, the weight of the loss. And yet, he's still with us with his legacy and with his message and with his love. And even though I only knew him for a year, I feel like he's been with me all my life, and that he's a member of my soul group. And he was like a father figure to me. And it was wonderful to meet Anne and Peter in person last summer in Edmonton when they came through with their tour bus. That was a riot. We spent Canada Day together sharing stories. And yeah, it was a wonderful time to meet and to share Canada Day, and to have them over for a barbecue at my home, and bring everybody over from B4F who wanted to meet Anne and Peter. But I'll backtrack here. Before Anne and Pete came through Edmonton in July last year, in May, after months of struggling with some very serious losses, I reached out to Peter for support to deal with complex grief. He spent hours on the phone with me, listening carefully and patiently. All I needed was for someone to hold space for me, and he did that. Through our coaching sessions, I learned about the struggles of an empath. I didn't realize I was an empath, and he said, it takes one to know one. We feel things very deeply. We're very sensitive. And he acknowledged that for me, and it helped me understand some of the struggles I've been going through for so long. I learned a lot about the types of different toxic personalities and the value of healthy boundaries and speaking up for myself. Pete encouraged me to work on my self-worth and to only surround myself with people who value who I am. But most important, Peter emphasized self-care. And so, as I said earlier, my father was a veteran, and he used to jump out of airplanes in the 1960s. My mom would say he was 120 pounds of romping, stomping, screaming airborne hell. And so growing up under the influence of the military and my dad, I always thought, wouldn't it be nice to jump out of an airplane someday, but I don't know if that'll ever happen. Well, lo and behold, here comes the skydive potluck. Here comes Peter and Anne. Peter was ripping around the airfield in his wheelchair. He was so excited, and he had such a joy for life. And he says, Julie, I'm gonna jump. I said, no, Peter, it'll completely mess up my nervous system. He said, no, it'll reset it. You'll do great. And so by the end of the day, I was trying to get up the nerve, and he said, I'll even pay for it. And he reaches for his wallet, and I thought, well, that's it, I'm committed. I have no excuse. So yes, I did jump out of an airplane. Thank you, Peter, for helping me get my wings. And yeah, it was, yeah, I jumped out of an airplane because of Peter Kitto. But one distinct memory I have of him that relates back to my father. When Anne and Peter were at my home for the potluck, it got late and Pete needed help walking to his car as and went and got his chair, his lawn chair. So he stood up from we left my backyard and it was dark. He was having a challenge walking with his cane, and so I held my hand out. He immediately grabbed my hand and he leaned on me, and we walked to his vehicle. And I could feel the warmth of his hand holding mine, and I could feel the love coming from him to me as we walked quietly and chatted on the way to the car. And interestingly, that was the last experience I had with my own father as I walked him to his car, because he had mobility issues. And I held his hand on a dark morning in the freezing rain, and I put him in the car. And he and my mom drove away, and that was the last time I saw my dad. So Peter, I think my dad brought him to me. I think the stars aligned one day, and here he came and shared his wisdom with me that I think my dad would want to have shared with me, but he couldn't. And so I feel so very blessed. And we all know how special he was. But with this over 10 hours of footage, I've prepared a small compilation video to share with you to continue Pete's legacy of self-care and humanitarianism. Because Pete knew the seriousness of the situation here in Canada and the world. We need strong, healthy leaders moving forward. And self-care is crucial for that. And that's why I think what a legacy for him to leave for all of us. And so with that, I'd like to introduce this compilation video called Enjoying Breakfast.
How can I open this up with a joke? And so, how many psychologists does it take to change a light bulb? The answer to that is none. The light bulb has to want to change itself.
Okay.
Most people tend to suffer in private. And I think the heaviest thing on earth is the telephone when you're in that state. So we need to learn some of these symptoms on when it's time to intervene and actually reach out rather than wait for that phone call. Because sometimes that phone is just far too heavy. That group stuff and the one-on-one buddy system is very important, but you can't be thinking that you're going to wait for the call. You have to be proactive and you have to be reaching out. And sometimes it's just a matter of touching base and you turn someone's day around. The other thing is, what happens when you get that terrifying call that someone's suicidal? Someone's got to that state of mind. Well, let me tell you one thing that I've noticed in dealing with this over the years. I have never, ever encountered anyone that committed suicide after a good night's sleep. Every single one that I've investigated has been after a period of days of interrupted sleep. They're exhausted and they're unable to function. So the first thing when someone contacts you and says they're having a rough time is to evaluate their sleep. Have they been sleeping? And if they tell you, no, they haven't been sleeping, that's when you need to go there. Not just phone them later. That's when you need to get somebody there, yourself or someone else that's available to go to that person. being able to do that is what I'm talking about here in terms of supporting one another. You can learn how to do that and create the opportunity to do that and save lives. What are you doing about managing your stressors? Good diet, good social interactions, good sleep hygiene, all assist in moving there. This is a journey of self-discovery, of personal growth. That's a good opportunity to rebuild, discover what's important, what's not so important, things to say goodbye to, and things to relish and take to heart as positive experiences in your life, memories that you'd forgotten about. You'd forgotten to visit those memories and relive the enjoyment of them. The opportunity to reorganize your filing cabinet is incredible. It doesn't take that long either. If you're finding yourself in a state of depression, having suicidal ideation, reach out. You know, they always say, in order to have a good neighbor, you have to be one. So it starts with your willingness to who you want to be. And if you want to present as that person that'll carry the other guy's rucksack while he rests, that's a relationship worth having. Misery is optional. You get to choose how much of it you want in your life. And that's what I'm finding is that a lot of people have moved into a state of depression in the grief process, and they're stuck there because they're expecting things to return to normal. In short, they have failed to accept that they have been betrayed. That loss is real. And the focus is the trust. And so what I'm seeing happening in groups like this and other groups coming together, restoring trust. Trust in community. Trust in each other. People with a common purpose working towards restoring that sense of tribe, that community, that brotherhood that's essential to human existence. People with a lot of empathy tend to ignore themselves. Not that helping others doesn't help you, because it does. That's what I gain so much from by helping others. But the foundation has to be maintained. Specifically. But in a broader sense, that's why I want to reassure and reinforce that from the depressive stage comes the acceptance stage and the hope that comes with that acceptance, moving into recovery, which is making sure self-care and understanding what self-care really is. Many people neglect that.
Right.
Because they're always an outward looking and taking care of other people. And they don't really understand what that means for them. And typically when we explore that and make some adjustments to that, then we really get some solid growth. We've been working towards the whole all along instead of the individual first.
Oh.
And building that inner strength and recognizing when, and empathetic people fall into this category more than anyone. And sometimes I say it's time to be selfish and focus on your needs because you're the only one that can provide them. And I've experienced and looked in the eyes of the worst and the most evil that you can imagine. So recognizing that that exists and that you can coexist somewhat. You don't have to allow it into your sphere of influence and into your heart and into your connection. You can expel it. And the more you expel it, the more you empower others to expel it. And you can build a broader community that expels it and builds in energy. Yeah, and I think that's what we're doing. I think that's really what's happening post-COVID. People recognizing that evil and standing up against it. As individuals, we need to be able to prosper. And the only way that we'll prosper as individuals first and add to our community as being that prosperous individual, it exponentially affects the community. So we have to work on ourselves and heal and recover from this massive attack on our being that we've just underwent. And in order to do that, we have to start with self-care. Now, you've all heard me say, enjoy your breakfast. That's that first step of being aware of yourself, the beginning of your day. Focusing on eating well, sleeping well. The self-care stage re-regulates the body's function because grief can have a significant physical effect on the human body. And mostly it affects the heart. That's why they call it heartbroken. You've got to think about what needs to happen for you to be able to do that. Focus on that one item and try to make it successful. Now, what would make a enjoyable breakfast successful? How would you describe that? You need to look at that. I would think it shouldn't be rushed. It should be in a place that's comfortable. It should be something that you enjoy eating, makes you feel good in your taste and your smell and your senses. That it's a definite activity that's uninterrupted, and you take time to enjoy that moment and that several minutes or even a half an hour period of time. But you're focusing on creating that event to be a positive event. And then as you establish those barriers, you eliminate those barriers that are impacting on that activity. And that's just a small activity, a period of time in your day, 15, 20 minutes, that you typically repeat every day. And that's when you start to rebuild your cycle. And so if you're going to look towards breaking out of a depression, those are some of the ways you can start by building that improvement. And then as you build on that, then you're going to look at looking at your 3 periods of the day: work, recreation, and sleep, and start to get those into more of a balance. And then it starts to compound into a more positive existence. But focusing on that small effort of say a breakfast, and it could be another activity in your day, as long as it's something that repeats. You know, you may have another activity or something that you want to achieve. Perhaps if you're having sleep difficulties, you could say, I need to have a deep relaxation period at the end of my day. That's another activity that you could build into your day-to-day in order to restart that cycle and establish that balance. And you don't let that get interrupted. You put that as a priority in your daily cycle, so that moving forward, you're building on that. That becomes the first anchor, if you would, to expanding on that. By approaching the state of chaos, by approaching it that way, it's a starting point. You're not overwhelmed. You're able to put the earth's problems aside and focus on something that has real value to restoring your emotional state and your physical state, which is the two factors that need to be brought back into balance so that you can balance your day and be more productive ultimately in managing all of this load that we carry.
Mhm.
But what we end up doing is we end up overloading ourselves. We end up, especially after a trauma, we end up in a state of absolute chaos, and we need to get reorganized.
My door was shut.
Is it video or are we taking?
Hi, Peter!
Hey, Peter!
Wish you were here!
What's up, buddy?
Love you! Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a soul like me. I once was lost, but now am found. Was blind, but now I see.
Enjoy your breakfast.
Accountability, healthy boundaries, and self-care. That's Pete's legacy. Thank you, Anne, for allowing us to be a part of this celebration of Peter's life. And we will keep his legacy alive. He's still with us. I feel it in my heart. And thank you to the Kitto family and friends for hosting and for being here with us. And I think at this point, if I could ask all of you to stand so we can think of Peter and sing the Lord's Prayer together. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come,
Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen.
Nice to meet you.
Just want to say thank you to everyone for coming. We've got some food coming, so that's good. I want to thank B4F and Jill, Charles, and Jackie. I want to thank Rennie for all he's done. And it's wonderful to see everyone. And I hope that Peter can see it too. Thank you very much.
Looking back on the memory of the dance we shared beneath the stars above. For a moment, all the world was right. How could I have known that you'd ever say goodbye? And now I'm glad I didn't know the way it all would end, the way it all would go. Our lives are better left to chance. I could have missed the pain, but I'd have had to miss the dance. Holding you, I held everything. For a moment, wasn't I the king? If I'd only known how the king would fall. Hey, who's to say? You know I might have changed it all. And now I'm glad I didn't know the way it all would end, the way it all would go. Our lives are better left to chance. I could have missed the pain, but I'd have had to miss the dance. It's my life, it's better left to chance. I could have missed the pain, but I'd have had to miss the dance.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a soul like me. I once was lost, but now am found. Was blind, but now